All right, buckle up, everybody, because today we are diving into the Bermuda Triangle.
Ooh, that's a fun one.
It is right.
Yeah.
I mean, who doesn't love a good mystery? And this one's like the granddaddy of them all.
It really is one for the books.
So we're talking about that area in the Atlantic, you know?
Let's see, if you were to picture it on a map,
Yeah.
you've got Miami as one point,
Yeah,
then Bermuda and Puerto Rico forming this kind of spooky triangle, right?
exactly. And this isn't just some modern fad either, right?
Right.
This whole Bermuda Triangle thing, the mystery goes way back.
Oh, yeah, way back.
You even found stuff about Christopher Columbus having run-ins with the weirdness out there?
Right, like back in 1492, Columbus was sailing through that same area, and his compass started acting all wonky.
No way.
Yeah, he even wrote about these strange lights he saw in the sky.
Okay, now that's just creepy.
Right. Imagine being a sailor back then.
Yeah.
And your compass goes haywire, you see weird lights.
Yeah.
You'd probably be thinking sea monsters or something.
I'd be making a beeline back to Spain, that's for sure. But it seems like the really big disappearances, the ones that really got everyone talking, those are more of a 20th century thing.
Yeah, you're right.
Like, what about that whole Lost Squadron thing I kept reading about? What was it, Flight 19?
Yes, Flight 1945.
Uh-huh.
5 Navy bombers just vanished during a training exercise.
Gone. Just like that.
Like they flew into thin air, no trace.
And then it gets even weirder, right? Because didn't they send out a rescue plane?
And that one just appeared too.
That's insane. I mean, come on, what are the odds?
Exactly. And of course, that's what everyone focuses on with the Bermuda Triangle, the big disappearances, the ships and planes that just vanish.
Right. But isn't it possible that, well, the ocean is just a dangerous place? I mean, things sink, planes have issues, maybe it's not some big mystery, right?
Well, you're not wrong to think that the Atlantic's a big, unpredictable place. Storms pop up out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Throw in the possibility of, human error, equipment malfunctions. And it's easy to see why things might go missing sometimes, tragically.
That makes sense. Okay, so maybe we're not dealing with sea monsters or underwater aliens, but what about the other theories? The ones that sound kind of science-y, but also a little wild?
You mean like the magnetic anomalies and methane hydrates?
Yeah, those sound like something out of a comic book, but people actually believe them, right?
There are definitely some of the more popular explanations, and believe it or not, there's actual science behind them.
Okay, so walk me through it. What are these theories all about, and could they actually explain any of these disappearances? Let's start with the magnetic anomalies. I mean, what even are those?
So imagine the Earth's magnetic field, like a giant bar magnet, right? Is what makes compasses work.
Okay, I'm picturing him.
But this magnetic field isn't perfectly, uniform. There are variation spots where it's weaker, spots where it's stronger.
Like how a magnet sticks to your fridge better in some places than others?
Exactly. And some people think the Bermuda Triangle might just be sitting in a spot where these variations are especially wonky.
Okay, I'm following so far, but how does that make a ship just disappear? Does the compass suddenly become sentient and steer them into another dimension or something?
Not quite sentient, but you're on the right track with the compass. Compasses rely on that magnetic field to point north-right.
Right.
But if the field is all messed up in that area, the compass needle could be way off, leading to huge navigational errors.
So a ship could think it's sailing one way, but actually be going in a completely different direction.
Precisely.
Ah.
Especially back in the day, before GPS, that could be disastrous. Imagine being miles off course and having no idea.
Yeah, recipe for disaster. All right, so magnetic fields, got it. But what about those methane hydrates? What in the world are those?
Okay, so methane hydrates are basically like these pockets of methane gas trapped in, get this, ice under the ocean floor.
Ice. Underwater.
Yeah, it's called methane hydrate, and it forms under very specific conditions of pressure and temperature.
Okay, so like a science-y ice cube, but with methane trapped inside. What happens when those things melt?
Well, if they were to release a lot of gas quickly,
Yeah.
it could create these huge bubbles that rise to the surface. And imagine a ship is sailing over one of these massive bubbles, suddenly erupting from below.
Oh.
It could cause the ship to lose buoyancy, basically swallowing it up.
You're saying ships could be sunk by giant underwater methane burps? That's both terrifying and kind of hilarious.
It's a scientifically sound theory, but whether it happens frequently enough to explain the Bermuda Triangle is still a big question mark.
So plausible, but maybe not the whole story. And of course, we can't forget about good old human error. I mean, people make mistakes, right?
Absolutely. And the Atlantic, especially around the Bermuda Triangle, can be incredibly unpredictable. Powerful storms, rogue waves.
Rogue waves, those are real.
Oh, yeah, those are like walls of water, sometimes over 100 feet high, that just pop up out of nowhere.
Hmm.
Imagine being on a ship and seeing one of those coming at you.
I'd probably faint.
And that area is known for converging currents, which can contribute to rogue waves forming.
So, even without sea monsters, the Bermuda Triangle has a lot of natural phenomena that could spell disaster.
Exactly. It's a powerful, often dangerous part of the ocean, even if we can explain some of it.
Right. Okay, so we've got potentially wonky compasses, giant methane bubbles, rogue waves, and just the general chaos of nature. But I know there are even wilder theories out there, the ones that really get people's imaginations going, like what? Aliens? Atlantis?
Don't forget time warps and underwater pyramids.
Oh, right. Those two. So how much of this is rooted in any kind of reality?
Well, some people would say those theories are a little out there, right?
Okay, so where do the skeptics come in? I mean, they don't buy into the whole Atlantis is attacking ships thing, do they?
Not quite. The skeptics, they have a point,
Hmm.
They say maybe, just maybe, we're getting a bit carried away with this whole Bermuda Triangle mystery.
Carried away, how so?
Well, they argue that maybe we're seeing patterns where there aren't any. Like you could draw a triangle anywhere on a map, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
And you're bound to find some shipwrecks or plane crashes
Yeah.
within that triangle. It doesn't mean the triangle itself is causing them.
So you're saying it's all just coincidence, just a bunch of random, unrelated incidents that we've woven into this big, dramatic story?
That's what the skeptics would say, yeah.
But what about the Coast Guard? I mean, don't they keep track of all this stuff?
They do, and that's where things get interesting. See, the U.S. Coast Guard, they don't actually recognize the Bermuda Triangle as being any more dangerous than any other part of the ocean.
Wait, seriously?
Seriously. They say that, statistically speaking, the number of disappearances in that area isn't really out of the ordinary.
Out of the ordinary for what?
For an area of the ocean with a lot of traffic, that is. Lots of ships sail through the Bermuda Triangle. Lots of planes fly over it.
Because it's not like they can just, reroute everything to avoid a triangle, right?
Exactly. So the Coast Guard, their view is basically, stuff happens. The ocean's a dangerous place, period.
Okay, I get that. But even the Coast Guard can't deny that the Bermuda Triangle has some unique features, right? We talked about rogue waves earlier. Aren't those a real thing?
Oh yeah, rogue waves are definitely real, and they are terrifying.
Like, how big are we talking?
We're talking walls of water, sometimes over 100 feet high.
Yeah.
And they can just appear out of seemingly calm seas with almost no warning.
No, thank you. So those things exist, and they've been known to pop up in the Bermuda Triangle.
Yeah, that area of the Atlantic is prone to them, partly because of its converging currents. You've got different currents smashing into each other, creating these unpredictable conditions.
So even if the Bermuda Triangle isn't some kind of supernatural vortex swallowing ships, it's still a place where a lot of things that could go wrong do go wrong.
That's a good way to put it. And here's the thing. Even if we can explain some of these disappearances with science, with things like rogue waves and human error, there's still a big piece of the puzzle missing, the human element. Why are we so drawn to this particular patch of ocean? Why does the Bermuda Triangle continue to capture our imaginations, even when there are perfectly rational explanations for some of these events?
So you're saying it's not just about what's happening in the Bermuda Triangle, but also about how our brains react to it.
Exactly. There's a psychological component to this whole mystery that I think is really fascinating. Like, humans are hardwired to look for patterns, right? We crave explanations, even for things that might not have them.
So when we see a bunch of shipwrecks and plane crashes in the same general area, our brains go, aha, there must be a connection.
Right. We're wired to connect the dots, even if those dots are totally random. We'd rather invent a crazy explanation than accept that sometimes things just happen.
I guess that makes sense. I mean, wouldn't you rather believe in, a giant sea monster than just bad luck?
Maybe a little. It's
Yeah,
more
go ahead.
exciting, right? And that's part of what makes the Bermuda Triangle so compelling. It plays on our desire for mystery, for the unknown.
So we're saying that the Bermuda Triangle is basically like the ultimate clickbait. It's our brains being tricked by our own need for a good story.
In a way, yeah. But it's more than that, right? I mean, it's not like we're making this stuff up completely.
Right. There are real shipwrecks, real disappearances.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we can't forget about the stuff we talked about earlier, the rogue waves, the potential for messed up compasses.
So where does that leave us? What's the final word on the Bermuda Triangle? Is it cursed? Is it just a normal, albeit slightly more chaotic than average, part of the ocean? I mean, what are people supposed to think after listening to all of this?
You know, it's funny, isn't it? We've spent all this time talking about the Bermuda Triangle, and I don't think there's one easy answer.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Kind of feels like we've just scratched the surface.
Exactly. And in a way, that's kind of the point, isn't it? The Bermuda Triangle, it represents the unknown, the stuff we can't quite explain, even with all our fancy science and technology.
It's like a reminder that we're not as in control as we think we are.
Exactly. And there's something humbling about that, I think. Keeps us curious, keeps us asking questions. Who knows? Maybe someday we will have all the answers.
And maybe, just maybe, we'll discover that the truth is even weirder than anything we could have imagined.
Now, wouldn't that be something?
It sure would. Well, I think that about wraps up our deep dive into the Bermuda Triangle for today.
It's been a wild ride.
It has. For everyone listening, if you're ever sailing through that neck of the woods, maybe think twice before you toss your compass overboard.
Or do, for science.
All right, maybe not. Anyway, thanks for listening, everyone, and until next time, stay curious.
Be curious.